So let's start with you. Who are you?
I'm Jen Grant. I'm the VP of Marketing at Box.net.
And who are you?
I'm Aaron Levie, the CEO of Box.
You're just about to announce something. In fact, this video will be up when the announcement's going up. What are you announcing?
Yeah, well, we're announcing a major technology addition to our product line. It basically enables a business to view all of their content directly on Box. So traditionally, with enterprise content management systems and sort of business content management platforms, you have a lot of content in the system, but when you want to download the PowerPoint file or the Word document or the spreadsheet or the CAD file, you have to load it up in the software that sort of it's made for. So you have to open up PowerPoint, you have to open up Microsoft Word, and what we wanted to do is bring the value of all that content directly to the web, so you can view it online and interact with it and share it very easily. So kind of just what we expect in our kind of consumer lives, where you go to YouTube and you watch a video, or you go to Flickr and you look at photos. We want to do that for business content and enable a business to see all of their business information directly on Box without having to download anything or load any software. So it's a pretty cool addition to our product, and it was actually based on an acquisition we did about 5 months ago.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Tell people who aren't familiar with Box, what is Box and why do you need to use it?
Basically, Box is an online content management system. So any business can put all of their content on Box.net and they can share it. They can share it externally with, if they're working with contractors or agencies, they can share it internally, and then it has all the collaboration aspects of being able to have discussions and comments and workflow and all that in it, so that you can use your content within your organization. And
does it have an API so other software developers can incorporate these features into their own apps?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a platform called OpenBox, and essentially OpenBox lets you take content from Box and plug it into all different kinds of platforms. So one example is we have an integration with Salesforce.com that lets you you could have a terabyte file system on Box and then integrate that seamlessly directly into Salesforce.com, so your sales reps will have access to all the contracts and marketing materials in your business. And so we do that with a few dozen partners and service providers, but it's completely open, so any business could integrate our APIs directly into their workflow or their platform.
Let's go up to 40,000 feet. What's happening in this enterprise 2.0 space, or how we are working together changing?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I mean, we actually see sort of 3 pretty distinct trends, and the first is that across all generations, people are web savvy, and they want to use tools that are easy. They know how to use YouTube, they know how to use Flickr, and they want their business tools to be as easy as that. But we also see there's been a shift in the workplace. So instead of people, 10 years ago, you only shared with the employees in your office. You didn't share outside the organization. Now you can have a marketing.
Or if you did, you emailed, and then, because we used to do this at our magazine all the time, we'd email a Word doc over, and then people would complain because they didn't have the Word version of
the right
Word
version,
using,
right?
or
Which is the final version, or is this the draft?
I don't have Microsoft Word. Can you send it to me some other way?
Yeah, so there's that kind of open organization now where you're sharing so much across the firewall that you can't really do it through email. You need better systems to support that. Yeah. And then the biggest trend that we think is really interesting is how IT is beginning to look at things. So instead, this is all about the recession, made us all think a little harder about where we're spending our money. And IT is really thinking more heavily around how to be more strategic and not spend all their time maintaining servers and all of the stuff that when they move to the cloud, they don't have to do. So there's a shift in that thinking that's actually really benefiting the cloud providers.
How do you see Google affecting your business? Because I know Google just won the Los Angeles employees contract, so they're switching from Microsoft to Google Docs and spreadsheets. But I know when I open up, if somebody sends me a PowerPoint or something, a Word doc in Gmail, and I double click on it, it opens up in a viewer of their own. So why do I need Box.net in a Google world?
Sure. Well, we kind of think about things in terms of all the different kind of content that you're going to be sharing in your business, and what Box has done is basically enable you to have a completely content agnostic platform for your business information. So what we do is take a lot of the sort of expectations that you have from the Microsoft, traditionally Microsoft paradigm, bring that to the web, so you have the sort of power of a Google experience. but directly in the cloud, so we can let you share all kinds of business information with all kinds of people without being locked down to sort of the Google way of doing things or the Microsoft way of doing things. So we can kind of be an independent piece of your technology infrastructure. And it turns out that most businesses actually like that value proposition of not being tied down to one system or another.
Yeah.
And actually, I mean, in a lot of ways, Google's a pretty good partner potentially, and also just to overall sort of help bring up the market. And we think that's pretty important. I mean, just as Salesforce sort of really introduced the idea of SaaS to the sales organization and to IT, we think Google's doing similar things throughout the organization and moving their infrastructure online. And so that ultimately benefits us and companies like Box.
Yeah. We really see sort of Google Apps is kind of going after Microsoft Exchange, and as you know, we're going after Microsoft SharePoint. So sort of the more integration we can do with Google Apps, the more we can offer a business sort of a cross-cloud kind of solution where they actually could move away from the Microsoft stack.
Interesting. So I have a whole division at Rackspace who's going, oh no.
Right, actually, yeah.
We host Exchange, very low cost and very high reliability.
Sure.
But there's a lot of people who are still on the Exchange model. And
But in a lot of ways, that's such a growth market anyway also, that I mean, moving that just to a private cloud is such an important endeavor anyway, that I think there's a lot of growth for really everyone. I mean, I think at the highest level, I mean, now like 80,000 feet up, right? The most important thing is that we can just enable businesses to do this type of computing online. And if we could accomplish that, whether they use Box or Google or Exchange hosted by Rackspace, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of different businesses, and ultimately it all benefits IT managers, and it benefits the companies because they can finally get this technology hosted by a group of people that it's their core competency. And we think that's pretty important. And overall, I mean, I think there's a lot of winners as that changes. There are losers as well, but hopefully not Box.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you're on the disrupting end of technology, so it'll be, I think your business challenge is just how does Salesforce affect your business, or how does Google, and then does Microsoft make defensive moves with SharePoint that keep people from switching? That'll be interesting to watch. What do you think is the biggest disruptor for your business this year? Is it or the biggest thing that's causing change in the marketplace? Is it mobile? Is it just this continuous drive to move everything onto the web?
Yeah, so great question. I think the continuous drive is absolutely like just probably the number one kind of idea that's sort of changing everything. So because IT can finally kind of trust these maturing platforms, like at the end of last year, our biggest deals were coming from IT directors, and that's such a new thing for us because traditionally it's a department manager that's implementing Box because they have to work around IT. And finally, in really the end of at the end of 2009. Throughout Q4 and a little bit into Q3, IT managers were absolutely buying into this. And that's pretty important for us, and that's kind of moving into 2010, a really critical strategy that now they can kind of buy into the security, the reliability, the platform aspects of Box. And second to that, I mean, I think you brought up a really good point on mobile. I mean, I think that kind of changes a lot of, and mobile, if you think very broadly, not just like a mobile phone, but just the idea of being mobile, and getting to your content from a tablet computer.
I mean, Apple's coming out with a Slate.
Right.
We have Intel showed us all sorts of new devices that are both Android and proprietary based, and iPhone certainly is going to continue being an important device this year.
So when you think about that, like at sort of abstractly, just the ability to get to your business information anywhere, fundamentally that's a major driver for any cloud content management provider, any kind of SaaS CRM provider, really anyone providing technology that's going to be available over the internet is going to benefit from all the sort of mobile proliferation, just because you're going to need this information everywhere you go. So we're really excited about that. We have a great iPhone set of updates going on. We actually, and sorry, this is just quick marketing on this stuff, but we launched a platform last fall specifically for the iPhone. So it basically enables iPhone application developers to integrate Box API into their iPhone app. So if they have an app that creates some sort of content like notes or a recording, or they need to be able to view content on the actual device, they can power all of that through our API. And so that's really cool. So it opens up a complete new market of new ways that you can be using cloud content. And so that's pretty important for us.
What are your first customer stories that are interesting? Because now that you have enterprise customers, I'm certain you're seeing some interesting use cases.
Sure, absolutely. So what's interesting is that we're kind of at a point where people have to decide, do they want to upgrade their SharePoint, right? Yeah. Do they want to set up a new, just because people haven't changed their infrastructures in the past 5 to 10 years or so. And so they're at a point where they have to make some key decisions about upgrading their infrastructure, upgrading their software that they're using, upgrading their platforms. So we have a lot of companies that are still on XP because it just takes so long to make these changes, right? And so what's happening is, at least in our space, people are having to make this sort of key decision of like, what is the next paradigm? What is the next sort of generation of technology that I'm going to use in our organization? That's why Google is getting a lot of success right now with Google Apps, is because it's time for people to say, okay, I either have to get the new license for Exchange and new servers, or I'm going to move this all into the cloud and stop worrying about that. And so that ends up being a major driver for our larger IT customers, where they're at a point where they're saying, okay, we have business organizations and business units that are spread across the world. They're collaborating with people that are spread across the world. We need to enable these people to share online fundamentally. We can either power that ourselves, put some servers online, in which case we're not going to really have best of breed software. We're going to have to manage everything, or we can ship this to the cloud, somebody else's cloud that can be managed. And then that's where we kind of come in, and we can come in with a highly usable product, a highly connected product that sort of connects to other applications. And I think our background of being very, very end user focused ends up getting us a lot of deals because we're enabling the end user to really have a great experience on the product. And that's pretty important, because if you can't do all of your sharing through our platform or through a platform, you're just going to go around email, and you're going to go to another system, which then loses the whole point of implementing it for your business. And so that's where we're at. And so we have really great examples of 500, 1,000 person departments or organizations that are now implementing Box, because they fundamentally need to centralize a lot of business information and share it out to a lot of people. And so we have a pretty good, pretty great product that enables that.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about where your business is, because it's not a seed round anymore. It's not even really a startup. It's sort of moving from startup phase to a more mature company, right? You have 70 employees. 70. So tell me, that's almost as many as Twitter has. So tell me a little bit about where the business is and what the funding is like, and what profitability and all that stuff.
Sure. Well, depending on the semantics of startup versus company, we're somewhere in between. But we've been definitely, we've been doing this for a few years now. I think the past 2 years has been just massively different than the two prior to that. But so definitely a lot of exciting growth. We basically grew our enterprise side of our business last year by over 500%. So we got a lot of great traction from enterprises and larger businesses that want to implement Box, and that's obviously great, and that's kind of been able to fund the growth and sort of justify the growth of the organization. We're doing a lot on R&D. We're doing a lot in sort of sales and marketing, and I think what we're really trying to do is build a really important business that can kind of enable cloud technology for an organization. So that's great. That's very exciting. A lot of great sort of trends and factors kind of going into the business at this point that we see only increasing kind of in this year and next year.
Are you still looking for more funding, or are you now cash flow positive? Tell me a little bit about.
Yeah, great question. So we are right now. We're pretty fine from a capital standpoint. I think there's always opportunity to think about more growth if you have more capital, and so we're kind of at that stage where that's something that we're contemplating. But I mean, from a business model standpoint, I mean, everything's going very well.
Yeah, and then tell me, how do you guys make money? If I was an enterprise here and SharePoint was at the other side of the table, how does it compare in price, and then how do you guys make money?
Yeah, great. So often SharePoint, if you think about the full cost of ownership, right, between all the different kind of consulting services you're going to use, and this is actually something that Rackspace is probably pretty familiar with. All the different consulting services that you're going to have to use, all the different contracts and licensing fees, it ends up being more expensive than just sort of the per user licensing fee that you kind of see up front. And so ultimately, when a business kind of looks at implementing SharePoint in their organization, Box is not only cheaper right at the start, because we have just a very standard flat rate per user, and it scales up pretty generously for the customer in terms of you get some discounts as you have 100 or 500 users. But then over the long run, using something like Box over SharePoint is just massively in favor of Box, because we're always upgrading the software on our end, right? So the business doesn't have to do that, so you don't have to have a lot of maintenance. We obviously manage all of the uptime and all of the reliability of the platform, so that saves you on sort of support costs and time of managing those things. And then fundamentally, things like SharePoint, right? We hear stories all the time where it takes 3 or 6 months to not only do a deployment, right, but to even get people on the system. And so that's ultimately what we're saving, is like when a customer comes to Box because they have a sharing problem, we can be solving your problem in an hour. SharePoint is at a minimum going to be weeks or months before you're really actually fully using SharePoint. And I think that's shared across a lot of SaaS vendors, but it's especially interesting in our space where you traditionally have to deploy servers, deploy infrastructure, have sales relationships, talk to consultants. We can do that all in sort of one phone call or just signing up directly on our website.
Very cool. One last question: what does the new features look like? What will I see when this new feature turns on Thursday? Yeah,
so we're super excited. So on Thursday, we're basically announcing it and making it available to our customer base. So they'll be able to go to their settings and turn it on. There'll be like a full rollout the few weeks after that. But at the highest level, it basically lets you seamlessly view the majority of your content that we can make viewable in your box. So all your PowerPoint presentations, all your Word documents, all of your Photoshop files, all your spreadsheets directly on Box. You'll be able to left-click it, see it, comment on it, do workflow around that content, and then eventually embed that into other platforms. So if you have an intranet, an extranet, a corporate website, a blog, and you want to take content that you're working on and expose that to the outside world, we make that very easy as well. So kind of the same value you get out of YouTube of having sort of all these embeddable videos and then a complete kind of directory of video content for sort of your consumer. The consumer side of things, we can do that for your business directly and securely, which we think is really, really powerful.
Very cool.
It definitely speaks to sort of this sort of new paradigm of cloud content management, where if an IT group uses something like Box.net that's so usable, where everybody can do everything within the product, and even sharing externally can be done so easily, and like you were saying, being able to embed it across the internet, and then taking a step back from that and actually being able to see where all the content in your organization is and who's sharing it and how many times it's been viewed and even the place in the PowerPoint that people seem to go to most. That's a pretty expansive vision of how IT can suddenly see everything going on in their organization, rather than where we are today, which is sort of very rigid, locked down, and people just go around it.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for inviting me out to see the new product.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank you.